Hello, everyone, and welcome to a not normal briefing episode. Just kind of wanted to go over a few things that I've gotten some questions on in regards to the PBY project that I'm working on. The project, as I went over in my last briefing video, kind of a little bit more in depth now that I'm a little bit further into the project. What exactly are the differences between the regular Catalina and the Super Catalina? So right here in front of me, I've got four versions of the six that will be coming in the package. Now that we're a little bit further along into the conversion process and me doing the updates and additions to the models. So on the right hand side, we have the Super Cat, and the left side, we have the standard Catalinas. So we've got the PBY 5 and the PBY 6. So on the right hand side, like I said, is Super Catalina, and the left side is the regular Catalina. So the tops are PBY 5s, the bottoms are PBY 6s, and kind of what I went over in that first video, you can tell largely right off the bat with these visually which one is a Super Cat and a 5A and a 6A. So the 6s, you can tell right away they have the taller tails. So, and then if you kind of look at the engines, you'll notice that the Super Cat and the Standard Cat have the Super Cats have larger engines, and that's because, as I went over earlier, the Standard Catalina obviously has the stock in the Pratt Whitney R1830s, and then the Super Cats have the R2600, the Wright R2600 from the B25 Mitchell on them. So that's the two visual large differences between the two. Um, and the PBY 5 has the largest difference by looking at the two is you can look at the tail. So the PBY 5 has the smaller tail, and the PBY 5 Super Cat has the modified tail by Steward-Davis. So on the sixes, they didn't need that because from consolidated, the sixes had a larger, taller tail. So the added torque, I think I went over this in the other video, the added torque from the R2600s wasn't the issue wasn't necessarily as bad on the sixes due to the larger tails. But the fives did need the larger tail to counteract the extra torque from the R2600s. So the R1830s and the standard cats made about 1,200 horsepower at takeoff power. The R2600 made 1,700 horsepower. So you're talking about a considerable jump in power between the two. So, what exactly was the difference in terms of performance going along that same line between a Super Cat and a regular Catalina? So overall, there's not a whole lot of documented information about the Stewart-Davis modified Super Cats in that respect, in terms of like top speed differences and things like that. But one thing I did touch on in that briefing video was that the climb performance was significantly better in the Super Catalina over the Santa Catalina. Obviously, because you're looking at 1,700 horsepower versus 1,200 horsepower. So, and that's per engine. So the Super Cats, as a result, from what I'm able to find, the maximum takeoff weight for the Super Catalina wasn't rated much more than a standard Catalina was, but they did carry more in terms of water load and retardant. So and the other thing too was the wartime Catalinas were a lot slower because they were carrying armament, extra equipment, and things like that. So the civilian versions were technically a lot lighter than those versions were. Plus, the civilian versions, as you can see in these pictures, they had a lot of their wartime uh, turrets and things like that removed off of them, which also helped lighten them and increase their aerodynamic efficiency. So the large aerodynamic difference in the noses with the giant turrets removed from the noses helped them a little bit, and same with some of the other modifications. The Lightning also helped them. Their top speeds and cruising speeds were a little bit better than the wartime versions, The cited information I could find about the Catalina is they cruise anywhere between 105 and 120 knots. It depended on the version, the equipment. So basically, if you're taking a lot of that into effect here, and you're talking about these firefighting versions that are basically stripped down and a little bit more aerodynamic, they're going to cruise a lot faster than their wartime counterparts would have. So um, in the updates the flight dynamics have done to these will do the standard Catalinas will do what it stated they would do in most of the documentation I've been able to find. You can cruise them easily at 120 knots, but they'll actually cruise at just under 80% power at 5,000 feet. They'll do um, they'll do in excess of 140 knots, which I feel is probably relatively accurate for maybe the extra aerodynamics that they have and them being lighter. Um, that's what they'll do empty. That means no payload, no extra crew, any of that. Just two crew members, no retardant or water on board, and about 40% fuel. So that's about what they'll cruise at. The regular Catalinas will do about 146 knots, I believe it was when I tested them. Um, they'll do, like I said, about 150 knots or 140 knots in that, and they'll do about 170 knots flat out. So now the Super Cat, on the other hand, they cruise a lot faster. They'll do probably about 160 knots cruise, and they'll do a top speed of about 192 to 194 knots, depending um, just about. So the Super Cats are definitely notably faster. So um, generally speaking, based on the old Alpha Sim flight model that these had, the standard cats will definitely feel faster anyway, but the Super Cat will definitely feel like almost an entirely different airplane with the amount of power that it has compared to the standard cat. So that's kind of like what we're looking at here. So in terms of when we're talking about weights, what was the difference between the Catalinas and their firefighting versions between each other? So the standard Catalinas had about 1,000-gallon water capacity they could scoop, and it took about 12 seconds, which is in comparison to the modern scoopers like the CL215 and 415s. It's about 12 seconds. It's about the same. And granted, the CL415 has about 1,600 gallons, so um, not a whole lot different there in terms of their scooping for the standard Catalina. Now the Super Cats, their scooping I heard varied between 12 and 14 seconds. The scoops apparently on the Super Cats were different or not quite as efficient as the regular Catalinas were. I'm not exactly sure. There's not a whole lot of documented footage or images of what the scoops actually look like on them. So there wasn't a lot of comparisons I could make of why they were different or if there was any confirmed difference between the scooping speeds. But that's one thing that I did hear about them. So, but the Super Cats could carry 1,500 gallons. So Super Cat was basically on par with a CL215, a modern CL215 with the R26 or R2800 engines. So fairly similar in comparison. The 215 is obviously still a little bit faster than a Super Cat would have been, but that's kind of what the performance of what you're looking at. They're a little bit more comparable to a CL215, the radial engine CL215 in that sense. So that's kind of what you're looking at with the Super Cat. If you're kind of looking at comparisons, you're kind of like doing the comparisons that I like to with some of these aircraft with performance numbers and things like that. So that's what we're looking at in the difference between the standard Catalina and the Super Cat. So in terms of their dimensions, there's not really any difference. Like I said, the only difference being is the slight height difference because of the tails, and that's basically all you're looking at in terms of their overall differences in terms of their footprints. That's basically it. Super Cats could carry a little bit more. They were a lot more powerful. Like I said, the difference between 1,200 horsepower per engine versus 1,700 horsepower per engine definitely are going to climb a lot better, and their cruises are a lot better. So, um, That's kind of just what I wanted to go over with, like answer maybe some of the questions people had, what the difference was between a Super Catalina and a standard cat. So